Welcome to episode 136 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and today I'm talking with a man who speaks around the country about authentic leadership. I'm so excited because this is an area I'm always trying to grow in, and I bet you may be too. So without further ado, further ado, let me bring him on. But first, this.
Today's guest, James Robilotta.
Hey, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Let me tell you a little bit more about James. I'm going for it, James Robilotta. James first book is entitled Leading Imperfectly. Now, of course, that's a title I absolutely love. And James, what he says, he's been speaking internationally to willing and unwilling audiences about curiosity, authentic leadership, and vulnerability since 2009. His clients include, check this out, American Express, General Electric, and Yale University. James' thought-provoking talks are infused with self-awareness, and comedy stemming from his background as a trained stand-up and improvisational comedian. Please help me welcome James Robilotta. Yay!
Hey, what's up, brother? Good to see you today, Jason.
Yo. You're hailing from beautiful Minnesota, huh?
Beautiful Minnesota. Yeah, well, not too beautiful today, but beautiful still in spirit, at least, Jason.
Spirit. It's been a long winter, hasn't it?
It has. It's been disrespectfully long.
Disrespectfully long. Yeah, definitely disrespectfully long. Well, James, a brilliant TEDx speaker once said, we all have a fear of tripping, so we use that fear to not start at all.
Sounds like a really smart
like
TEDx
that.
speaker.
How do we work with this natural fear we all have of making mistakes, screwing up, being uncertain, generally being human?
Yeah, Jason, I love this question. I think that at some point in time, we need to figure out how to accept who we are. I'm a big fan of various personality intakes and whatnot. One of the ones that I love the most is called Strengths Finder. Maybe, I'm sure you've heard of it. Strengths Finder talks about how we've gotten to where we've gotten to in life because of our ability to lean into our strengths, not overcome our weaknesses. And so this is very easy for me to say. It's another thing for me to practice, but recognizing that we have gotten here today to wherever we are, whatever level of success we are at, whatever level of peace we are at, whatever level of whatever we're at, we've gotten here today because we have some pretty amazing qualities. We do some things really well, and some things that help people around us, some things that help us, some things that are great for the companies that we work for the families that we are proudly a part of, et cetera, et cetera. And when we think about the question that you asked, it oftentimes we ignore those things because they came naturally to us. And because we didn't work at them, we were just naturally charismatic or naturally detail oriented or naturally a leader or naturally whatever it is here, empathetic, and those kinds of things that we sometimes discredit some of our natural strengths and talents and don't really lean into them. And we miss a really beautiful moment when we do that. We discount who we are and the worth that we bring to the table. And that's how I think that we can really start to try to get over some of those things or push through some of those moments of awkward, some of those moments of insecurity, is to remember that, yeah, you know what? I don't bring everything into the room, but I damn sure bring something. And I think it's really powerful when we can stand in our truth of, I don't have everything, but I have something to offer, and that something needs to come out.
That sounds like that's so important to our own happiness, obviously, but why is it also important to the people around us?
Yeah, I think there's one of my favorite words to talk about when I have the opportunity to stand on stages is relatability. And relatability, I think, is a secret weapon that most leaders and humans need to use more. Relatability is powerful because when we see ourselves in someone else, we believe that we can. And so when we lead through our slips, through our struggles, through our stories, and also through our strengths, we allow other people to see more of themselves in us. And that's really beautiful because in those moments, that other individual may start to believe that, oh, maybe I am where I need to be right now. Just because I haven't accomplished everything I think I need to accomplish, or I haven't reached my definition of success, or whatever it is, maybe it's okay that I'm on the path and still a work in progress. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm enough, which is a really powerful gift to give to oneself. And so therefore, when we lead with relatability, and by lead, I don't just mean work, I'm talking about in your household, right? Parents are leaders, peers, friends are friends are leaders to their friends, those kinds of things. So when we lead with that air of relatability, I think it is a gift that we give to other people that allow them to lower their shoulders and just show up more authentically instead of showing up as who they think they need to be. They're allowed to now show up as themselves.
So am I, James. We've met once. You were giving a great half-day presentation, but I still don't know you all that well. Am I understanding you right that you teach leaders to be 100% perfect 100% of the time?
Yeah, leaders, if you're not perfect, I don't know what you're doing, right? Like hang it up, go for a walk, just fall off a pier somewhere is that where I'm at, right? If you're not perfect, I'm done.
So you're basically perfection or bust, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, my counselor makes sure that I know how much of a perfectionist I am as well. So it's great.
So, I mean, and we joke about this, and we all know intellectually that we don't have to be perfect to be loved, to lead, to have a fulfilling, productive life. But yet, James, I find, even though I'm in the work I'm in for a long time, even though I'm me, I still try to be perfect.
How's that working out for you?
Stressful. So how do we, as humans, cope with a part within us that always kind of yearns for to be something we're not, always yearns to be the perfect image that's not real?
Yeah. Jason, this is so hard. And you should know that I have made a lot of money telling people to do things I need to do. Right. And that's basically the tale of a professional speaker in a lot of ways. And
Or a professional anything, probably.
absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And so, you know, how do we learn to accept who we are, where we are, and what's going on is hard. There are two words that I personally frequently used interchangeably that I have now realized, honestly, in the last year through the help of counseling, that they are different. Those two words are this: settling and being content. I used to think that they were the same exact thing. Whenever I saw that someone was content, I was like, oh, they've settled. Great. Right. And we know that settling means, if we're going to separate them and define them independently as they should be, settling is the idea that we have accepted our lot in life and just been like, it's it. Right. This is all I deserve. Right? I don't deserve anything more, so I'm going to settle for this, right? I'm going to settle for this partner. I'm going to settle for this job. I'm going to settle for this, those kinds of things. These are individuals that never ask for promotions because they just are like, I should be grateful that I even have a job, right? And yes, you should be grateful that you have a job, and you can realize that you're capable and maybe at times deserve more, right? And so, but that's what I think is settling, right? It's like, well, I've peaked. I don't have to go any further. I'm done. So that's what settling is. And the other word that I mentioned is content. And being content, the way I have separated the two is being content is saying that I am where I am, and that's okay. But I'm not necessarily done. But just because I'm not done growing, not done learning, not done advancing, not done earning more money, not done chasing my dreams, doesn't mean that I can't also enjoy where I currently am. And there is a peace with contentment that I am very, very jealous of because I don't have that peace. You just mentioned it yourself, Jason, right? Like, it's stressful. It's stressful to keep striving. It's stressful to think you're not enough. It's stressful to think you're not perfect. It's stressful, et cetera, right? And and part of that, we're not going to get into politics, but like part of that is the capitalistic nature of our country that is really beautiful and has gotten to some really incredible heights. And if we continue to live in that mindset individually, there are times where when will we ever reach the top of the mountain if we keep making the mountain higher?
When will we ever reach the top of the mountain if we keep making the mountain higher?
You like that one?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's really good.
I've never said that before. I think I like it too. So yeah, man. So that's kind of how when I think about the question that you asked, that's how it sits for me. And that we need to be chasing contentment and not judging ourselves and thinking that we're settling.
So the dance between being content where we are in our careers, in our personal lives, and knowing that there's more we want to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think, There's let's go back to the mountain, Jason. Why not? We're on it now. But like
I'm starting to get a little sweaty. I didn't expect a hike, James.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm out of breath. I didn't anticipate the altitude sickness. So we'll figure out. We're gonna ham and egg this together. So as we talk about climbing the mountain, we frequently look forward. And we look up and we look at how much more I have to go, right? I got to keep going. We either look up or we look to the side. And when we look to the side, we see other people on their mountains and they look like they're higher than us. We're like, well, look at so-and-so. They've already done this, or they're like that, or they're more organized, or they drive this car, or they want a vacation here, or their kids are perfect. Must be nice to have perfect kids. Right?
And it's a huge mountain range we look out at.
Yes.
Huge.
Yep, and social media gave us binoculars to look at other mountains, right? And so when we think about it, we compare ourselves to other people. But when we compare ourselves to other people, we don't first off think about where I wonder where they got dropped off on the mountain, because we don't all start at the bottom, Jason. Right, we get dropped off at different places depending on how we were raised, depending on the ability that we were handed in life, depending on our IQ, EQ, depending on all sorts of things. Right, the color of our skin, who we love, those kinds of things drop us off, and we start the mountain climb at different places, so it's tough to compare ourselves to other people in that way, but we look up and we see I'm nowhere near where I want to be. We look to the side and we say, look at everybody else who's further than me, but we never turn around and look back down the mountain to be like, oh, shoot, but look how far I have climbed. That's pretty cool. Look at the work I have done. Look at the experiences I have been through. Look at the goals I have crushed. Look at the obstacles I have overcome. This is pretty awesome that I'm this high. We never give ourselves that moment of grace, of appreciation, of whatever, to be like, that is often a really beautiful fuel to keep going. Instead, the fuel is, well, I'm not enough, or I'll never get there. When we look back, the fuel to keep going is, look what I have done. Imagine what I could do. This is really beautiful.
And when we look back, we don't even have to look back at our careers or even at high school or grade school. We were born in. At first, we didn't know how to talk. We didn't know how to do anything. I won't go down the line, but it can get pretty graphic pretty fast. But as babies, we didn't know anything, and look at where we are now.
Yeah, it's pretty special, right?
It really is special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've done a few things.
Just a few.
Yeah.
You keep saying the what and like be content where we are now and think about what we want to do, and that makes me think of improv. What did you learn because of yes and stuff? What did you learn from improv about life and about leading our own lives from an authentic place?
Yeah. First, a really cool question. So I've been doing improv since 2004. I did it in college, did it in graduate school, and then moved to New York and trained at the Upright Citizens Brigade, and have been performing.
Oh, you trained with a formal. You've done a lot of improv.
A lot. Yeah. No, a ton. Yeah. Yeah. Very proudly. And performed, yeah, I've performed all around the country, a little bit internationally. And so improv is a way of life for me, right? It's something that I love. It's a hobby that I enjoy. But what it's taught me is, first off, the importance of community, because when it comes to improv, it's not stand-up comedy. And I've done stand-up before. And stand-up, there's no high like a stand-up high, but there is also no low like a stand-up low, because those were your jokes, that was your idea, that was your timing, that was your execution, and you learn very quickly if you are funny or if you're not. And this is what I loved about improv, is that I get to get up on stage with a group of friends or a group of strangers. It doesn't matter. And we get to create together. And it's not about who's funnier. It's not about who's got the wittiest pun or anything like that. As a matter of fact, those individuals who strive for that often hurt the team chemistry, because it's about making your scene partner look good. Right. So that's why we say yes, and, because our scene partner walks out with an idea and we have to say yes to that idea. And here's another detail. Here's more information. Here's an emotion surrounding it, or here's why that matters right now. And so improv is an incredible listening sport.
A listening sport.
Yes, because
you
if we're
just described improv as a listening sport.
Yes. Yeah, even though we're talking, right? It's obviously people are up there talking, but it's about the response. It's not about the initiation. The response is what makes improv beautiful. And improv, after the first line, improv is all responding. And if you are going to respond in a way that makes your scene partner look good, or you're going to respond in a way that moves the scene forward, adds stakes, and creates a cool dynamic where we know who we are, where we are, and what we're doing, it's really imperative that you use great listening skills. And so improv made me a better listener, and in turn made me a better communicator.
As you talk about this, it occurs to me, how often in life do people in general and go around and someone presents an idea and we go no, or we think of an idea and we get excited about it for a sec ourselves, and then we go no to our own idea, and how much did that shut down what could be that we're always saying no to ourselves and to other people?
Yeah, I think there's some fear in it, right? I think no is easy. Right? No is an easy way for us to not have to put ourselves out there. No is an easy way for us not have to engage. It's an easy way for us to write people off. It's an easy way to whatnot. And I think there is such thing as being good selfish, right? Like, we need to value our own time. We need to set boundaries. Those things are healthy, right?
Like that good selfish.
Yeah, there's some good selfish out there, right? Good selfish is like, I'm allowed to chase my dreams. Right. And I want to chase my dreams, and I'm allowed to give myself time to do that. But we also know what bad selfish looks like, because this is typically all we talk about when it comes to selfishness. And I think sometimes no can feel like that. So it's about finding a balance, right? Because you need to be true to yourself, but you also need to take risks every once in a while. And sometimes those risks, I'm not talking about we need to skydive, right? But sometimes those risks are like, what if I leaned into this conversation with this person and just see where it went? Right? What if I said yes to this idea, yes to this moment, and just saw what came next? They talk about, life is a series of doors, but you got to be willing to open the door, right? Because you can say
another one. Life is a series of doors, but you got to be willing to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nice, James.
Well, thank you. So yeah, I think that's where it comes into, and why a lot of us default to no is because no is safe and no is known. And sometimes when we say
No is known.
yeah, and sometimes when we say yes, there's security in no, right? But sometimes when we say yes, we kind of are like, I don't know where this is gonna go, and we'll see. So yeah.
So this makes me think, on your website you say that when you speak to an audience, you would like to get them to pause and reflect. And I definitely, in this conversation, I'm starting to reflect more on the reflexive nature of saying no, and how almost automatic it is. And so thanks for getting me to pause on that. What else do you like to get your audiences or your workshop participants reflecting about? Pausing and reflecting, or whatever I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said something, say something, and make it look good. Okay.
Answer the question we all know I asked. I love it, Jason. Yeah, first off, I think that if we are going to make changes in our life, in society, in our whatever, in our time that we have here, it is easier to make a change from a paused position than it is to do it when in motion. Our lives are filled with patterns. And so we just keep going. Those patterns, as a pattern does, keeps repeating, right? And a lot of those patterns are really great and very helpful, right? I love the fact that my body knows how to brush my teeth in the morning when I am absolutely delirious and don't want to think about anything. But my body's like, I got it, right?
And when I saw you speak, I loved that your body brushed your teeth too. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, of course. So when it comes to making people pause, if we want to make a change, we got to stop and think, where am I? Do I like where I am? Or what am I? I have this thought pattern. How did I get into this thought pattern? What do I think about this thought pattern? Do I still agree with it? Or I've picked up some new information along the way. Should I change how I've been thinking because of the new information that's been gathered? Or sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. Actually, I'm even more proud about where I'm at. I'm even more sure of myself, right? It doesn't matter which way we go after the pause, but the fact of the matter is every once in a while we need to pause and think about, what am I doing here? What's going on? And this is true in arguments. This is true when it comes to conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because a lot of times we just been living in our own patterns and our own knowledge of like, well, this is the way that life works. So this must be how A, B, and C should, handle themselves. But sometimes A, B, and C grew up differently than you in a life that handed them a different circumstance. And so the life that they know is different than the life you know. And we need to pause and be like, oh, shoot, is it possible that our lived experiences are that different? And if they are different, what does that mean? And so, those moments of pause are really powerful. And I try to get people to think about those kinds of things. I try to think, get people to recognize the patterns that they are in with the people that they meet and know. There's people who we love, and we're in patterns with them because we laugh and we carry on. And what if we disrupted that pattern and we asked one more question and we got to know them a little bit deeper? and we learned a little bit more about them, could our relationship become even more enriched? And for the people that are annoying or frustrating to us, we are in patterns with them. What if we disrupted that pattern and we decided to meet with them or speak with them outside of that pattern, outside of that workplace, or outside of that office, or outside of that whatever it is, or we decided to have a completely different conversation, because we always talk to that person who annoys us about the same dang thing, and it's always annoying. And now it's like, you know what? Let's talk about something different today, because I'm sure you have some endearing qualities, and I'd love to find some. Right? And so those kinds of things are powerful as well, to get people to pause about that. And also, the last thing I'll say that I try to get people to pause on is, how would you lead if you knew you were enough? How would you love if you knew you were enough? And how would you let yourself be loved if you knew that you were enough? And if we can pause and think about some of that kind of stuff, maybe sometimes we can rewrite some of those stories we were talking about earlier, Jason, of like, you know what, I'm not perfect, but I'm still deserve love. Or I'm not perfect, but somebody else sees my greatness. So when they tell me I should apply for this role or be promoted, maybe I don't need to take myself out of the running. Maybe I do have it in me. I just don't see it yet, but somebody sees it in me. And so let me lean into that, right? Those kinds of moments. Or, I do deserve love. And so, maybe I'm allowed to ask for help. And that doesn't mean I'm a burden. Maybe it just means I'm a human being who needs some help.
So James, in my experiences, audiences like being comfortable. In the way you describe the pause, it sounds powerful, but sometimes very uncomfortable for people. How do you help audiences embrace that discomfort of the pause?
I don't think, personally, I don't believe my job is to come in and validate everything for you. I think it's my job to come in and validate some things, because you're not crazy, you're not out of this world, you're not ridiculous, you're not, you're not a burden, you're not. I think I should validate some things, but it's also my job to make you think. And the way that I do that, I believe my speaking style is I get people laughing, and then I sucker punch them in the feels. Right. And so I get people.
That's nice. That's nice. That's kind of you too.
I'm very kind. I'm very sweet. Yeah. No. When in doubt, physical violence. No. No, but seriously.
Take away from today. No.
Podcast over. Screw these mountain quotes. So when it comes to my style, I make people comfortable by getting them to laugh. Right? When we laugh, our shoulders drop. We sit back in our chair. We relax. We settle in. Laughter creates security. It creates a place of. Laughter is also community, right? When we laugh with other people, we look around and we're like, yeah, this is funny. Yeah, we're all doing a thing right now. This is cool, right? And so there's that feeling of you're in it together. Now, this is why comedy clubs are often really small and tightly packed into basements. It's because laughter is contagious, and when we push people together and mash them into spaces and occasionally add alcohol, they're more likely to laugh harder. They're more likely to let go quicker. Because they're a part of something. And so I try to create that with my audiences. Because if I can get you comfortable, then I'm going to be able to sneak a message in while your walls are down. Whereas if I just come at you with facts and with stories of me being a hero and of things that aren't funny or whatnot, your walls are going to go up, because you're going to be sitting there being like, well, I'm not enough, or I'm not. Oh, here we go. You're validating the fact that I'm inferior, which is a thought that I have playing through my head, right? Like, as a speaker, I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to feel like you belong here. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You were not hired on accident. You were hired because you are enough and people trust you. And so let's start at that base. Now, where can we go?
I remember for our workshop, you walked in and then you could have said all sorts of places, but suddenly you're talking about how much syrup people put on their pancakes, and you're taking a poll of the audience. It was great. It was interesting, and it was fun.
Yeah, because we started at the base of humanity, right? Like, I mean, my introduction is not a list of places that I've spoken. I mean, obviously you read my bio, which has a few more of the where I've spoken and what I've done, but my on-stage introduction, when the host of the event gets on stage, they don't read any of that. Right? It's way more approachable. And then I start with humanity. I start with food quirks. I start with things that, we're all weird. So let's start there, and now let's build. But let us, sometimes we forget about some of the humanity of the people around us, when that's something that we need to be reminded of pretty frequently, because we talk to each other differently when we remember that they are a human being, not just someone who hasn't gotten the damn paperwork to us yet.
I can see someone listening and nodding their heads and going, "Oh, James, yeah, and doing double thumbs up, because people do double thumbs up as they listen to podcasts, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see like a emergency room doctor, or someone in a high stress corporate position going, "Yeah, but the pancake thing sounds really fun, James, but you don't understand my job. They count on me to always be on, blah, 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 blah." So how do we incorporate the lightness and the relatability you're talking about in high stress jobs and still get the job done? How do we do both?
Yeah, it's hard. I think one thing we need to remember is that there are very, very few jobs in the world that demand perfection. For example, I never want to hear my neurosurgeon go, "Oops," right?
No, that'd be bad.
And when it comes to,
But you would probably be under anesthesia, so you wouldn't hear that technically.
True. Yeah, technically you're right. Yeah. And unless that was the oops.
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. Moving on.
But I think there are, there are obviously military actions that need to be handled basically perfectly. They got to shoot the gap. They have a window of time and a window, whatever. And so there are certainly examples that people could throw at me to be like, "Well, what about this? This seems to be perfect. Well, what about this? Seems to be perfect," right? We can't have a construction person be like, "Yeah, the angle, yeah, it's close enough," right? There's some things that demand perfection. There are jobs that demand perfection, but when it comes to leadership and perfection can't really hang out together, because there's no perfect way to lead, because every single person is different. And every single person, even if you've figured out how they best like to be led, their dog may have died that day. Right? They may have, they may be going through a divorce. They may have their kids could be going through something, or they could have just been diagnosed with whatever, right? Leadership demands fluidity. And if you try to stay rigid with your blinders on, then it's just not going to work. And this is why micromanagers, it's a fascinating way to lead, because micromanaging will create productivity. It will also create burnout. And so at that point in time, you got to weigh which one you want to do, right? Do you want your people to be wildly productive for a short span of time and then leave and have no loyalty? Or are you willing to bring in some grace and bring in some other things into the style where you can still demand excellence, but you can also appreciate these individuals' humanity? I think it's about finding a balance, but knowing that every leadership style has its dark side is really important.
So you're saying leading imperfectly is probably about creating sustainability in an organization instead of having a team of people be really productive for 6 months and then never want to speak to you again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we all have a price, right? And that price isn't always a dollar amount. That price can be measured in terms of time, in terms of respect, in terms of those kinds of things, right? And so that's why you can keep trying to raise people's salaries, but at the end of the day, they may define their self-worth differently than money. And if you're not paying them in that currency, then you're going to lose them.
Well, my job quotes all over the place here. What was it like to take the leap and lead your very first workshop?
Repeat that question one more time, brother.
Yeah, we were going on a certain train, and now we're going down a different track. So going back in time a little bit, what was it like to take the leap from what you have been doing to leading your very first workshop?
Yeah. So I worked in higher education for a number of years. I worked in higher education as a student affairs administrator. I helped run residence halls on college campuses. I developed student leaders.
In residence halls always follow the rules to the T, right?
To the T, sir. Yes, indeed. Yeah. And so, yeah, for sure. And I helped brand like new student orientation and a whole bunch of the kind of things like that on college campuses. And so I was big in the college leadership development world. And big in, not that I was a big deal in it, I was just big into it. And so so when I first started speaking, it was at conferences that had fellow students at it. And then when I started leading students, I would bring those students to those conferences that I went to as an undergrad. And I had an opportunity to start presenting then about different topics. And it was a rush. It was a huge rush, and that's why I kept doing it, right? There's always been a performer in me. When I went to college, this will make a lot of sense, but I was choosing between, do I want to go into acting school or theater school, or do I want to be a marine biologist? Those are my decisions, Jason, with the things we all wrestle with. And so I decided to go and be a marine biologist because I was like, well, let me get a practical education. And if I want to do theater, it'll always be available to me and I can figure it out. If I'm talented enough and put myself in the right rooms, then magic can happen. So let me get a degree that I can always fall back on. The irony.
And you chose marine biology as that degree you could always fall back on.
That was, because it was my other passion area, right? I wanted to be the next Jacques Cousteau, which is ironic. Because when you think about it, Jacques Cousteau made a living off of, especially during his later years, he made a living off of educating and entertaining people about a subject that he was passionate about. And now if you fast forward, as a professional speaker, that's what I get to do. I make a living over entertaining and educating people around subjects that I'm passionate about. and that I'm passionate about, that I think other people need to care about, right? Jacques Cousteau wanted to illuminate what was going on under the surface of the sea so that people would care about it, so that I would ideally pollute less, so that they would, not drive their ships onto coral reefs, right? And those kinds of things. And so I take that and I try to make people believe that they're enough so that they can just be more authentic and create organizational cultures where people choose to care about each other. And so, we all got our fish, I would suppose. So yeah, the first time that I got to start presenting to my peers, it was a beautiful mixture of nerves and excitement. And I always have stage fright. The day that you and I got to spend together over in Sioux Falls, that day before I started, I was really nervous. And even during the presentation, I was nervous because sometimes audiences in corporate events, they don't give you a lot back. Right? They're not, because they got other things going on. These people have kids. These people have jobs. These people are actively getting emails. These people, there's things that are going on. And so sometimes they're not always 100% present. And it's hard for me not to take that personally, to be like, and not to say, well, James, they're not present because you're not good enough. Right? That's the way I can sometimes write that story on my darker days. And so there's always this beautiful mixture of excitement and nerves that kind of go into it. But it's been the rush of getting to do it that's always and the importance of the topic that I'm talking about that keeps me going.
I always I agree. It's tough as a presenter because we can have audiences in so many different places and different energy levels, different amounts of attention and stuff. And I try to tell myself that even if an audience isn't that expressive, maybe we say something that transforms their life in a week or a year or 5 years, and we'll never know that, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Right. I mean, there's some people where that day in that moment, it's the exact message they needed to hear. And there's other people that got stuff going on. And it's not the time for them to hear it, but hopefully I've said it in a way that's memorable. So there's a seed planted, and when it does get the appropriate amount of rainfall, or when the sun is shining on it just right, it comes out when it needs to.
Earlier in your career, how did you learn to be resilient in that? Because as a young speaker, having a deadpan audience can be so tough.
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's scary, and I think that's why I start with so much humor. That's kind of why I start in a little bit of a ridiculous way. It's like, hey, y'all, I'm gonna tell you how I eat pancakes. It feels normal, right? Right. And it's because it's immediately like you create a situation where audience is like, what's going on here? And so they just start to pay attention slightly differently. But I think there is humor has always been the thing that I have been fortunate to have a talent with. And so I don't get too many deadpan audiences. I get audiences that laugh less or laugh quieter, right? But for the most part, I'm able to get people to where they need to go. But there's certainly been a number of events that I've had that I didn't get them. And I had to walk away being like, okay, that was really hard. That was a real big blow to my self-esteem. Am I good at this? Should I keep going? And you have to look back at the other wins that you've had to be like, well, just because this one, if I shouldn't keep going, then this one wasn't then this is what I normally get. And the other times where people did laugh and did come up to me and say hi and thank you, that means all of those were a fluke. But that doesn't seem likely percentage-wise, that all of that was a fluke, but this one thing, this one time, this is actually what, this is the audience that finally people were like, hey, James, we've been meaning to tell you, you may not want to do this anymore, right? Like, that's just not likely. And so at some point in time, you got to play the percentages game. But it's really hard. I mean, you know this, I'm sure, with your show here, Jason, or with other things that maybe you've put out into the world, you've gotten 100 nice comments and you get one comment that's like, what are you talking about? And you're like, oh God, oh no. And it's human nature to hold on to that one thing. But it's also human nature to be resilient. So we got to keep going.
We were talking about the neurosurgeon a bit ago, and imagine if the neurosurgeon has a surgery that doesn't go the way he or she wants it to, and so they just quit. Imagine all the people who don't get to benefit from the skills since they stopped, and maybe it's the same with speakers, or any profession. If we let ourselves get discouraged and quit, we're depriving a lot of people of us of our gift.
Yeah, I agree. Beautifully put, Jason.
Thanks, James. I try to put things beautifully.
Done.
Now changing tracks again for a sec. And one of your blogs, you say a synonym for change is work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I wanted to ask you more about that. So often we want the easy way to move forward, the easy way to grow, the get rich quick schemes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying what work's involved in authentic change?
Yeah, I think if change was easy, more people would do it. More people would accept it. Right. But if you look it up in the dictionary, the synonym for change doesn't actually work, Jason. So let me go ahead and let me talk to my grammarians really quick. Okay.
Thank you, because I was going to look it away afterwards, and I may have been very disappointed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let me just brace you for the disappointment, which should be the title of my next book. So change is a synonym for work because a lot of people like the idea of change. The idea of change is really intriguing, right? Because many people are a grass is greener type of scenario, right? Where it's like, oh, well, yeah, if we could work to that, or if that could happen, that would be incredible. But they don't realize how far apart where they are and where they need to go is. And the gap in between is work, right? The gap in between is unlearning, relearning, and then putting into action. And that's hard. The hardest part of it is unlearning. Because when is the last time you listened like you might be wrong? That's a tough thing to do. Or when's the last time, you heard someone's advice like, oh, shoot, I've been doing the whole wrong. I got to figure this out. But even still, we know this. Like, look at if one thing was able to spark, if one sentence was able to spark a change, then cigarettes wouldn't be here anymore, right? Like, if those ads work, right? Like people wouldn't drive one drunk, people wouldn't X, Y, and Z, right? Like, if I am a large man who is self-conscious and has low self-esteem issues about how big I am, and I have heard all of the statistics, I get it. But the change is work. If I want to look differently, if I want to fit into a different size of pant, in order to get there, that change equals work. So that's what I'm kind of talking about here.
And so when we ask people to change, we're not asking them to do something that's easy.
Correct. And we shouldn't be asking them as if it is easy. I think we frequently are just like, well, just do this. Well, let's figure this out. Right? This is why giving advice is often lazy. Because I think that giving advice is you learn a little snapshot of where someone is in their world or what's going on in their world. And you have the gall, the audacity to be like, well, just do this. Instead of giving advice, we have to ask another question because we need people to start to critically think about where they are at. And they have to come to the decision to be like, oh, wait, that's right. We should move forward. So that's how I would say that I agree with you.
Well, I read your quote, so maybe you're agreeing with yourself.
Perfect. Another pat on the back.
I wanted to be sure to ask you this. What's your next book going to be about?
I think my next book is going to be most likely about how curiosity creates community.
Oh, wow.
And so it's going to be a lot.
Say a little more about that because it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the thing that separates a lot of people is the unknown. And instead of learning, we spend our time assuming, and we fill in the gaps for what we don't know by assuming things about them. And the way that we are able to assume things about somebody is because it's been fed to us by the news or our assumptions or that one experience when we had that time with that one person who kind of looks like them, right? And so we assume X, Y, and Z. And so assuming is easier than learning, but that doesn't mean that it's right. And it kind of goes back to this idea of what I was talking about with advice. It goes back to this idea of we need to ask one more question. Whenever we are in a situation with somebody, if we are in an argument, if we're in a get to know you, if we're in a work meeting, if we're in a mentee mentor situation, whatever, we need to, if we meet a stranger, if we meet someone that we've known for a long time, I want us to ask one more question. I want us to.
And does it matter what the question is?
It doesn't necessarily, because it's basically like I want us to go a little bit deeper. Right? We ask the question, "How are you?" all the time, but "How are you?" has just become like a longer, more polite way to say hi to someone. Right? It's not necessarily something that we're like devoted the time. Right? You can tell the difference of someone who asks, "How are you?" and they want the whole response as opposed to like, "Good, take care." Right? In America, when you say, "How are you?" you're allowed to respond with good, fine, tired, or busy. That's about it. So when we talk about how curiosity creates community, it's powerful because questions lead to story. Story leads to connection. Connection leads to trust. And trust can lead to loyalty, which means the foundation of building a society or building a workplace or building a friendship where trust is involved, that starts at curiosity. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about.
Curiosity and asking questions.
Yeah.
Wow.
So curiosity, I think, creates community.
Hmm.
Communities are places where we feel seen, heard, respected, and safe. And if you don't ask me or want to know about my story, then I'm probably not going to feel heard. I'm not going to feel seen. I certainly won't feel safe, right? Because how do I know you care about me?
And now we expect it.
Mm-hmm.
Profound. Could talk to you for hours, man. But just two more quick things because the hour's up. We're going into just a tiny bit of overtime now. Um, overtime. So
Woo!
so ooh, so I always ask my guests this: what does doing your imperfect best mean to you? Do you want to say what it means to me first? Or do you want me to say what it means to me? Or do you have an answer already?
So the question was, what does it mean to do our imperfect best?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what doing our imperfect best is knowing that we left it all on the field and giving ourselves the grace when the result isn't exactly what we had hoped.
Hmm.
Right, Giannis over on the Milwaukee Bucks was talking about this when they just got kicked out of the playoffs, and a reporter asked him, "Do you perceive this season as a failure?" And he's like, "No,
Hmm.
there is no failure in sports." He's like, did Michael Jordan? He won. What did he win? 6 basketball championships out of the 15 years that he played. Does that mean he had 6 successful years and he had 9 failures? No. It's about building. It's about growing. It's about trying our best. And then if our best doesn't quite get us to where we need to get to, then we either learn to accept where we are and be proud of it. Then we learn to accept where we are and be proud of it and start to figure out what does it mean to do more if we want to do more. So I think
Hmm.
that grace is something that we don't talk about enough or that maybe that I don't personally talk about enough. And so therefore it's something I'm paying more attention to. But doing our imperfect best, I think means leaving it all on the field, but giving yourself the grace to know that even if the result wasn't exactly what you wanted, that you are still enough.
Powerful, powerful. I love that. Is the best way for people to get a hold of your website?
Yeah, website's great. Yeah, JamesTRobo.com. James T. Robo all over the internet. I put a lot of powerful content. I hope to be, I think, funny, powerful, whatever. Good content on Instagram and on LinkedIn too. But yeah, I'm James T. Robo on all social media platforms or just James Robilotta on LinkedIn.
Well, it's been a distinct pleasure to have you on the show and have this conversation. Thank you so much, and thanks for your perspective and your profound courage and doing what you do and opening and helping people pause and consider ideas that maybe they haven't considered before. Thanks for being you, my
Thank you,
friend.
Jason. Thank you for having the courage to come up to me and talk to me and say hello. Thank you for the book that you gave me, and thank you for living in your truth unapologetically.
You're welcome. Uh, um, gosh, I life can be so enjoyable and so interesting. That conversation was interesting in James' perspectives, and he just kept dropping one-liners, which were amazing. And I just encourage you, as always, to ask the people around you questions, and in James' language, to be curious about the people around you. It's so much fun. So much fun and so fulfilling. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're watching live or later. Your presence here is, I appreciate it. Leave comments if you want, and next week, next Wednesday, there'll be another. Oh, my college friend Rachel Lindquist will be on. She's a nurse now, and and she has a fascinating perspective on nursing. So take care and tune in next week. Until then, the outro. Gosh, I never time it went by.